The illusion of world experience. Once a devotee asked Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharishi, are the stones etc. destined to be as they are always? Bhagwan said, who sees stones? They are perceived by your mind, so they are in your mind. Whose mind is it? The questioner must find himself. If the self is found, this question will not arise. The self is more intimate than objects. Find the subject, and the objects will take care of themselves. The objects are seen by different persons according to their outlook, and theories are evolved. But who is the seer, the recognizer of these theories? It is you. Find yourself, then there is an end of these vagaries of the mind. When news of the death of King George V was brought to the ashram, Chadwick's eye filled with tears, and the other disciples commiserated half weepingly with him in sympathy. Maharishi at last broke in after having remained silent throughout. You unwise persons, he exclaimed, you may even die to find out your real self and then may live without death. Why then do you care for the death of a third person? The self doesn't perish, only the body anyway. Be rid of your materialistic outlooks. When PB's pet rabbit was killed by a wildcat, the Maharishi said in response to someone's expression of regret, the rabbit's spirit is still near Bruton. It has not gone away. Do not worry about it anymore. It is dead, so be quiet. We read a newspaper and all the articles therein, but do not care to know anything about the paper itself. We take the chaff, but not the substance. The substratum on which all this is printed is the paper, and if we know the substratum, all else will be known. The one only is the Sat, the existence. It is the paper, whereas the world, the things that we see, and we ourselves are the printed words. There is an end for what you observe. That which is created has a destruction or end. That which is not created has an end. That which exists cannot be observed. It is unobservable. We must find out what is that appears. The destruction of that which appears is the end. That which exists forever. That which appears is lost when we realize it has no independent existence. What is it that had birth? Whom do you call a man? If instead of seeking explanations for birth, death, and after death, if the question is raised as to who and how you are now, these questions will not arise. You are the same while deeply asleep in dream and in waking state. Is the I thought Jiva or the body Jiva? Is this thought our nature? It is the body that feels pain. There is no pain in the self. This external universe is a cinema show to the realized man. It is free and the performance goes on day and night. He lives and works in it, knowing that its objects and bodies, persons are illusionary appearances, just as an ordinary man knows the scenes and characters on the cinema screen at a theater are illusions and do not exist in real life. But the ordinary man takes the external objects of daily life as real, whereas the realized one sees them only as illusionary cinema pictures. The universe doesn't exist apart from self. All evolution, all external objects are spun out from the self and disappear into it. Where does the world disappear when we enter in deep sleep? Then we exist, but the world no longer exists. Self is hence the substratum which gives reality to the universe. If our self did not exist, there would be no universe for us. The reality is in the self. Therefore, not in the universe. Realization of this comes to the realized man. This self is the screen. The universe and its events are the cinema pictures shown thereon. The screen doesn't change, but the pictures are transient and are changing. The sage experiences that he is the body, as does the ignorant man, but whereas the latter believes that the self is confined to body, the wise man believes that the body cannot remain apart from the self. The self is infinite for him and includes the body also. Devotee asked, what are the first steps to spiritual practice? Bhagwan Maharishi said, in the beginning, one has to be told that he is not the body because he thinks that he is the body only, whereas he is the body and all else. The body is only a part. Let him know it firmly. He must first discern Chit, consciousness, from Jada, inert, and be the Chit only. He must discern the sentient from the insentient. Later, let him realize that Jada is none else than Chit. This is discrimination. The initial Viveka must persist to the end. Its punctification is moksha, liberation. Devotee asked, do heavenly worlds really exist? Bhagwan said, so long as you consider this world real, those also are real. Why should they not exist? Devotee asked, but are those worlds mere ideas? Bhagwan said, everything is really an idea to you. Nothing appears to you except through the mind and as its idea. Devotee asked, then where are these worlds? Bhagwan said, they are in you. Humans can be reborn as animals, dependent on the last train of thought or mood prior to death. This again is produced by predominant thoughts during life. Devotee asked, there is a religion called Christian Science which has a similar doctrine. Is it correct? Bhagwan said, yes, but don't think of the results. Devotee asked, what of toothache? Bhagwan said, the pain is in the mind. What happens to the toothache during sleep? Do you feel the pain then? No. Well, in the self you are in happiness always. Devotee asked, the Christian Science healings are on the same principle. Bhagwan said, yes, and also similar results are obtained by willpower. Will and the self are the same. Think of the self despite the mosquitoes or toothache. It needs strength, but one must be a hero to gain realization. Devotee asked, what is death? It is, Bhagwan said, it is in the mind that birth and death, pleasure and pain, in short, the world and ego exist. If the mind is destroyed, all these are destroyed too. Not that it should be annihilated and not made quiescent, for the mind is quiescent in sleep. It doesn't know anything. It's still on waking up. You are as you were before. There is no end of grief. But if the mind be destroyed, the grief will have no background and will disappear along with the mind. Devotee asked, is there rebirth of man as a lower animal? Bhagwan said, yes, it is possible as illustrated by the Jada Bharata anecdote. This is a reference to the story of a saint who became so attached to a deer that he was reborn as one. Devotee asked, is the jiva capable of spiritual progress in the animal body? Bhagwan said, not unlikely. It is exceedingly rare though. Devotee asked, what is death? Bhagwan said, death is intervening sleep between two successive births, while sleep intervenes between two waking states, and both are transient. According to the Sanskrit saying, a wife is half the body of the husband. No doubt it is very sad thing for the husband if his wife dies. If one begins to think in terms of his Atma, there is no sorrow at all. According to the scriptures, a wife is dear because she pleases her husband by acting up to his wishes. then if all this is for the pleasure of the Atma, where is the sorrow? In spite of this, even persons who have got a glimpse of the real knowledge lose their mental equipoise when such calamities occur. During sleep, one is happy. The self was happy in sleep and did not see the wife, but now in the waking state, the same self which was happy in sleep enjoys happiness or misery owing to the presence of worldly things. Why should not the happiness enjoyed in sleep by the self be enjoyed in the waking state also? The false knowledge of the identity of body with Atma is the obstruction for enjoying Ananda bliss. That which exists is always present, and that which never existed cannot exist. What is born? What is it that dies? Waking is birth, and sleeping is death. Did your wife accompany you whenever you attended to your duties and during your sleep? She was staying separately somewhere, but you were then thinking that she was living. Now, after her death, you think that she doesn't exist. Therefore, the difference about your wife is in the kind of thoughts that constitutes your sorrow, that she doesn't exist. The whole thing is a creation of your mind. It is that which is known as sorrow, owing to the thought of non existence of the wife. The whole is mental imagination. His own self, which is by nature full of happiness, also creates sorrow. Why should there be grief for the sake of those who are dead, since they have been freed from bondage? The self creates grief by entering into the thought about the dead person. Why should there be any concern if a person is dead or exists? You must destroy your personal ego. There is no sorrow at all if one's ego is dead, leaving off the feeling of I, while the body last is what is called the annihilation of the ego. If the ego is not annihilated, the person will certainly feel sorry for death. One cries for persons who are dead, but if the I had been annihilated before they died, then there is no necessity for his crying for them. Our experience of happiness is only during profound sleep, when we have ceased to think of our bodies. Even a wise man, a Jnani, speaks of disembodied liberation. Therefore, a wise man looks for when he shall cast off his body, just as a cook who carries a load on his head feels relieved soon after he reaches his destination and places it on the ground from off his head. So a Jnani abides his time to cast off this load of his embodiment in flesh and blood. Therefore, the death of the wife, who is termed half the body of the husband, should relieve the husband of half his load, and therefore should make him feel happy. But it is not so considered, since we perceive these things through our physical senses. Even Jnanis, wise men, though they be, are perfectly aware of the need of being disembodied for final liberation, yet talk of liberation in the body. Devotee asked, what is the state just before death? Bhagwan said, when a person grasps for breath, it indicates that the person is unconscious of this body. While gasping, the person is in something like a dream and not aware of present environment. Devotee asked, does the new body involved in that state represent the next reincarnation of the person? Bhagwan said, yes, in this case, but there is also in other cases a period between births. Some are born immediately after, others only after the lapse of some time. A few are not reborn on this earth but get salvation from the higher regions, and a very few get absorbed here and now. To a Buddhist, the idea of diversity comes with the body consciousness, which arose at some moment. It has an origin and an end. What originates must be something. What is that something? It is I consciousness. On finding its source, you realize absolute consciousness. Can the world exist without one to cognize it, which is prior, the being consciousness or the rising consciousness? The former is always there and eternal, the latter rises and disappears, it is transit. Devotee asked, "What is illusion?" Bhagwan said, "Find out to whom is the illusion and it will vanish. It is foolish to talk about it, for it is outside us and unbroken, whereas the seeker is inside and to be known. Find out the immediate and intimate instead of what is distant and unknown." Devotee asked, "Brahman is real, world is illusion, is Shankara's stock phrase. Others say the world is real, which is true." Bhagwan said both. They refer to different stages of development. The aspirant starts with the definition that the real exists always. Then he eliminates the world as unreal because it is changing and hence cannot be real. Ultimately, he reaches the self and there finds unity. Then that which was originally rejected as being unreal is found to be part of the unity, being absorbed in the reality. The world is also real. There is only existence in realization and nothing but that. Vedantis say Maya's manifestation is the display of cosmos on pure consciousness, like images in a mirror. The images cannot remain in the absence of a mirror, so also the world cannot have an independent existence. Sri Shankara says that the absolute is attributeless. What is the difference? Both agree that the display is unreal. The unreality of world is implied by Shankara, whereas it is explicit in Vedanta. There is no difference between matter and spirit. Modern science admits that all matter is energy, energy is Shakti, therefore, all are resolved into Shiva and Shakti, self and mind. The bodies are mere appearances, there is no reality in them as such. Devotee asked, "Why does Maya become active?" Bhagwan said, "How can this question arise? You are yourself within its fold. Are you standing apart from that universal activity in order to ask this question? The same power is raising this doubt in order that all doubts may finally cease. Maya is only Ishvara Shakti or the activity of reality." Devotee asked, "What is existence?" Bhagwan said, "It is subject to birth and decay in order to remind us that it is not our true state." Hari Om Tat Sat.